Super. What a great intro to this next session that we're going to have. It is about invention. It is about human creativity. It is about solving the climate crisis. And it's also about doing things not just for Sweden, because climate change is a global problem, but answers for the whole world. We're here to talk about how energy storage delivers combined heat and power for sustainable agriculture. My name is Nuttall. I am with the Stockholm-based digital TV company We Don't Have Time as one of their presenters. One big feature of this year's COP, if you've been around the COP, if you've been to COPs before, if you know about COPs, is that agriculture has been very much at the forefront of this COP, along with nature-based solutions, because they're both very keenly intertwined. I was absolutely taken away, my breath was taken away by a report by the Exponential Roadmap, which, as you know, is based in Sweden, and Conservation International, one of the big NGOs out there, where they were looking at the opportunities for decarbonizing the global economy through the lens of nature-based solutions and agriculture. And yes, we can do it. We can hit that 2030 target if we bring in principles of regenerative agriculture, if we bring in principles of conservation of very vital natural assets, we can actually start absorbing these emissions back into nature. But it's not just about nature's solutions. We need to help agriculture also decarbonize even further, which is why we're here today for this presentation. So we're going to have some terrific guests on the show, but before we meet our terrific guests, we'd like to roll a film which is going to explain what our theme's really about and some of the developments and breakthroughs that we're going to talk about. So can we roll the film, please?
We are here in Haneberg, Eskilstuna, Sweden, where a groundbreaking development in energy storage is taking place. As part of a collaboration with the Swedish Energy Agency, Azelio has installed the TES.POD long-duration energy storage system. And this is a flagship project for combined heat and electricity application. We are using renewable energy to charge our system. And by doing that, we are able to replace fossil fuels, both in heating and in electricity applications. My name is Jonas Wallmander, and I'm the CEO of Azelio. Long-duration energy storage addresses both the climate and the energy challenges. It reduces the impact of climate change by making renewables stable and available 24/7. And it solves the energy crisis by being decentralized, cost-efficient, and market-ready today. Azelio has TES.POD units deployed around the world and supplying clean power. This is the first Azelio installation where heat is being used. In addition to providing electricity, TES.POD is generating heat, which will be used to dry grain here at Haneberg farm.
I'm Anders Krusberg. I'm part of the family who owns this farm, Haneberg. We have around 350 hectares where we mostly produce grain. You dry the grain to have a better quality and to store it for a long time.
My name is Tove Lindqvist and I'm operating as the Chief Technology Officer here at Azelio. We have, for the first time in the world, demonstrated a new way of delivering heat and electricity to customer. The heat that we produce from our system is used to preheat the air to the drying process, and that heat is delivered through a hot water circuit. The system has been designed primarily to deliver electricity to the customers, but by including the energy from the heat, you can increase the efficiency. By this product, we are able to deliver heat at low temperatures to many applications. It could be agricultural, it could be mining, it could be local communities.
Haneberg Säteri, this farm, really wants to be a future-proofed farm, and all the things that Azelio offers with the heating, renewable power and electricity just ticks all the boxes that we want to have at this farm.
drying grain is really one of the first applications. But what I see as one of the most important applications going forward is really the desalination and water purification. So far, this is the first project that we are deploying. This is a demonstration project where we prove that the CHP solution is working. But we are ready to deploy this in many new locations all over the world, in all our key markets, like in US, in South Africa, in the MENA region, and in Australia. And the next step for us is to add the heat system in our installations around the world.
Excellent. So, thank you. Let me now turn to Jonas Wallmander, CEO and President of Azelio. I mean, he was on the TV, but we've got him in person as well. Can you believe that? So, Jonas, briefly, for the viewers out there, I think we've got a good idea now, but maybe just touch on what does your company actually do? How long have you been around?
So, yes, Azelio, we are a long-duration energy storage company, and we've been around since roughly 2008. And as we all know, renewables such as wind, solar, are only producing electricity when the sun is shining or the wind is blowing. And that's why we need storage. We need storage to stabilize the electricity grid. We need storage to create profitable businesses, because if you have losses of energy, you will have losses of your production. And what Azelio really does is that we are able to combine renewable energy, such as solar or wind, with our storage solution. And then we can create a 24/7 sort of electricity production for the sort of weak grids that are out there. And our strength is really our scalability, because we are scalable from very small installations into larger installations. We have installations, or we can make installations from roughly 0.5 megawatts up to 20 megawatts. And that's why we really focus on the industrial segment. Like this agriculture segment is one of the industrial segments. And in the industrial segment, we really see traction. We really see that this solution will make a difference. So, and we should keep in mind that the agriculture sector is responsible for roughly 24% of all the CO2 emissions globally. And replacing fossil fuels with renewables is key decarbonizing the agricultural sector. So I think this is also where heat comes in, because it's not only electricity that we are able to produce from our units, we are also able to produce heat. And providing heat to the industrial processes is sort of a combination, combining heat and power is very often needed in the agriculture sector. So, thank you.
Very interesting indeed, and I think that explains it much better because, as you say, it's both heat and it's also power at the same time. And I would even say that your comment about the emissions from the agricultural sector, it's probably even bigger. Because if you factor in food waste as well, and you know, in a lot of developing countries, in the rich countries we tend to throw a lot of food away, but in the developing countries they lose a lot of food from things like loss of electricity. So refrigeration collapses. A lot of the fish from the east coast of Africa rots on the way from Mombasa to Nairobi because they've had a problem with the electricity. So, interesting. Good. Let's bring up our next guest. That is Nils Westling. He's a program manager, international climate initiatives at the Swedish Energy Agency. And we're going to hear about its role in supporting and catalyzing innovation. Great to see you, Nils.
Thank you, Nick. Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm from the Swedish Energy Agency, and I understand that we've had a long cooperation with Azelio. I'm personally at the Unit for International Climate Mitigation, International Climate Cooperation, and I think we have lots to talk about that we will not talk about in public or with an audience. But I'm here more as a representative of many of my colleagues that have been participating or cooperating with Azelio over the years. So the Swedish Energy Agency has several assignments from the Swedish government. We're a government agency. And we do support early stage innovation, especially if it has the capacity to provide emission reductions, greenhouse gas emission reductions, especially if it's in the energy space, and especially if it is scalable internationally and exportable. And I think Azelio is all of these things, so therefore it makes sense that we've had a long cooperation. And with that, with the export thing, I mean, we particularly look at international capacity. As Nick said in the introduction, climate change is a global problem. It doesn't make sense for us to travel down to Egypt to talk about something that will be used on a farm in Eskilstuna. What makes sense is to talk about how we take this global, how we can use this potential globally and actually start reducing emissions on a big scale as soon as possible.
Great. Nils, thank you very much indeed. Absolutely. I mean, I think what we're saying is it's brilliant that you get something incubated in Sweden, right? That then you can, scale it around the world. I think it's marvelous. And what the Swedish Energy Agency's role in this is very important. But also, I think the Swedish Export Credit Agency, I can't remember the acronym, but amazing that they also have a big role to play in scaling these things worldwide. So now we're going to go over to an organization I'd never heard of before, but I was very excited because I couldn't work out the acronym. I was kind of thinking, which football team is that? Or I couldn't work it out. And then I Googled, and then I learned a lot because I actually spent some time on your website. So last but not least, let's welcome Julia Souder, Executive Director of the LDES Council. Now, maybe you can all guess, but I'm going to put you out of your misery, which is... No, I'm not actually. I'm going to let Julia say what the acronym stands for. But Julia, briefly, what does the Council do? What does LDES stand for? Which will explain everything. And then please tell the audience about perhaps the market potential for, and now I'm going to give it away, aren't I? Long duration energy storage. Okay, over to you.
Thank you so much, Nick, and thank you to the Pavilion Sweden for hosting us on Energy Day. Hashtag LDES is going to be the new theme with flexibility. We're really happy to be at COP27. It's our year anniversary. So we were launched at COP26 promoting a net zero power report, demonstrating that there is a $3 trillion market when you look at just electricity. But when you bring in heat, it's over a $4 trillion global market that long duration energy storage can play a role in. And we are really here today to highlight both the fact that you have flexibility with long duration energy storage, 10 hours plus, multi-day, multi-hour, multi-seasonal, multi-month, that we can be around 24/7 to give you that clean, firm power and clean, firm heat. And we're really thrilled to bring together, this an awareness of thermal energy storage. So COP27, we launched this net zero heat report where we're highlighting the building sector, the industry sector, is over almost 50% of global emissions. And as we transition from fossil fuels, you need a new baseload. And that's thermal energy storage, long duration energy storage. So what we really want to work on is highlighting our global membership. We have now over 65 members from 20 countries, highlighting the importance of long duration energy storage to meet our global decarbonization goals. And we're doing that with our global executives and working in partnership with many other countries and organizations to really amplify how long duration energy storage hashtag LDES, is part of de-risking the transition.
You didn't give us the full LDES. What does it stand for?
Long duration energy storage.
Hooray! Now we've got it.
There's four types of long duration energy storage. There's the thermal, there's chemical, electrochemical, and mechanical or gravity. So there are many types of long duration energy storage that have been around for decades, and then there's many types that are new and innovation, bringing diversity into the marketplace.
Good. Thank you very much indeed. So let's go for a little chat. We've got 20 minutes. So again, just so we can clear this all up, this development is coming out of Sweden. That's fantastic, but what stays in Sweden doesn't have to just always stay in Sweden. It can go elsewhere too. You mentioned South Africa. You mentioned the Middle East and Near East, I think, MENA, what the UN calls West Asia, because it's sort of, a different concept, but they got different names. Why did you identify those countries in particular, Jonas? Why was it South Africa and USA as well? And the Middle
There
East?
are different reasons for this, and some of the key reasons is really that if you have to have the need for sort of stable electricity 24/7. At the same time, you probably have some kind of issues with your grid. And in the MENA region, we have a lot of sort of areas, countries, where there are unstable grids, where you, if you are going to sort of run a farm or industry on this unstable grid, you will have problems. And by sort of deploying our solution together, our long duration energy storage solution and solar PV, we are able to sort of provide off-grid or more sort of semi-off-grid system to these customers, such that they get energy security, they get lower prices, lower costs, so they can have more profitable businesses. But one key to this is, of course, the access to solar. So combining our solution needs sort of access to fairly cheap renewable energy, and you find this in these regions. You find the people or the industries that are, you find the sort of solution that is profitable for the customers, giving them lower energy costs, stable energy production, and sort of really a business case.
Let me just say something. I mean, heat is everywhere, isn't it? I mean, you just go down into the London Underground in London and you're sweating in 5 seconds because there's all this heat being generated. I have no idea where it goes to, but I know a lot of it's going into me, which is a waste of time. And then, you're looking at heat even in water from water treatment works, right? There's always a bit of heat that's discharged out into the river systems. Heat is everywhere. The potential for harvesting heat, storing heat, turning heat into useful things rather than things that just warm up the air. You mentioned the trillions of dollars. Does it translate into gigatons of CO2 at all in any way? Has anybody thought how much, if we use this heat, we could actually hit our 2030 halving targets or net zero or whatever?
So on our website, we have 4 reports: the Net Zero Power, a public policy toolkit, a 24/7 clean PPA document, and a net zero heat report that we just published, highlighting that if you bring in long duration energy storage to give you the heat from it, whether it's 100 degrees Celsius to 2,000 degrees Celsius, you can have $540 billion a year of savings. And so there are many different ways to capture the heat and reuse it, whether it's power or as storage. And so there's companies doing this for district heating, there's companies doing this for agriculture, there's companies doing this for waste power, waste sewage into storage for heat, underground, using different types of tubing. There are so many different diverse solutions to use thermal energy storage that will decrease emissions. Because the whole goal is to decarbonize and reach our net zero targets, and you have to do this with thermal energy storage. So what our council is doing is promoting the diverse technologies that can work in remote villages around the world, but also in urban centers to make sure that you're getting both the heating and cooling with clean energy resources.
And I also think that we have to keep in mind that if you look at the sort of industry demands for energy. 2/3 of the energy demand is heat. And so if we are going to decarbonize the industries, we have to decarbonize heat. And this heat, only for the industries, is roughly 1/5 of all the CO2 emissions globally. So it's really important to decarbonize the heat portion of the industry needs.
Are we ever going to get down to the level of the household? Do you imagine one day we'll have this in every house, and you know, if it's a bit too hot that day, we might harvest the heat and store it and then release it out at night or something?
I would say we will never, our technology is focusing on the industries, and there's a reason for this. Because if you have a household, you go to bed at night, you will not use as much energy. You will wake up and use some energy in the morning, maybe probably lower energy during the day. And where we really make a business case is when you have this stable demand for energy 24/7. And that is really the industries.
Okay.
Or base load demand in the grid.
Maybe one day in the future with large housing estates or something like that, there might be, especially people that stay up in the middle of the night watching Netflix, then there might be some demand, you know. So, Swedish Energy Agency, do you do anything in this area, or is this like an eye-opener for what you could be doing?
I think we do a lot in this area. I mean, energy storage in general is a big topic for energy people all over the world. I think personally am not an expert. This is quite eye-opening for me on the heat for energy storage. But I must say I very much like the idea. I like the idea of how do you say, diversifying energy storage. I think there's a lot of focus on batteries, which are, I mean, they're crucial. We need them very much, but they require all sorts of materials that are unsustainably sourced and that are very limited. I think this diversifies the energy storage landscape, which is very valuable. And from my perspective, so I work in international climate cooperation. We're looking at various mitigation activities around the world, and I think, I mean, the go-to solution for us has been a renewable energy. Like we can, there is huge, like, there is money to invest in solar panels and wind power, and it needs to be done, but it needs to be complemented with storage because it's.
So maybe that when you touch on renewable energy, I mean, you know, if you look at some of the numbers, and I think everyone's maybe seen these, that renewable energy is like doubling every, you know, 3 years, 3.5 years. It could be 2.5. I've lost track now, but it's achieved, renewable energy has achieved this exponential increase, and I think we're very lucky for that to happen. It took a long time, of course. When I was a journalist on the Times newspaper in London, a unit of wind power was about $50 a unit, right? But now it's competitive with coal and gas as well and other things. So that's great. But we can't stop there, clearly, because there's other parts to this story. So there's the energy storage thing. I mean, very interestingly, we had a session just the other day, and there was a lady from Kenya on. It was about electric mobility, and Volvo Cars was there. I think it was Volvo Cars, or was it the other one, Volvo Buses? I always get confused. But it had the name Volvo. And the lady from Kenya said, yes, well, what you don't realize is we have a surplus now of renewable energy in Kenya. We're generating so much. We don't know what to do with it. We need to store it. And I think people don't realize how fast things are happening in some countries, right? That they actually are growing fast with renewable energy, but they need storage. So something like your solution could come to the rescue of the government of Kenya, of the people of Kenya, because they want to store that electricity somewhere, and Azelio could do it. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. And I think this is, you touch upon like normal batteries, and sort of the difference between a normal battery and a long duration energy storage battery is sort of the capacity. So what is capacity is very often a sort of question. And if you have sort of a electrical vehicle and you pull like full gas, full throttle and go straight ahead, the battery will be out in roughly 20 minutes. But if you have a long energy storage solution, it will take you 10 hours plus until your battery is out. And that is really the sort of big difference between sort of normal batteries solutions, chemical batteries, and the long duration energy storage solutions. The amount of capacity, and this is why long duration energy storage sort of can be the solution providing industrial base load in sort of these kind of countries where you have a surplus of energy. And industrial baseload is for building industries. You can sort of supply your people, as we mentioned, they go to bed at night with sort of short duration storage solutions. But if you really want to build industry in a country, you need solutions that are 24/7.
Yeah.
If you want to decarbonize, this is the solution for the industries.
Yes, Julia.
The point about the entire ecosystem, how you charge your vehicles, how you charge your homes, if we electrify everything, we need to have a new type of baseload, and that's long duration energy storage. So all that surplus solar and wind can be stored in diverse types of technologies of long duration energy storage, whether small scale, large scale. And I think that's what we're really trying to emphasize in the transition. As we move away from fossil fuels, long duration energy storage can meet those goals because we are de-risking the transition. And if you look at the costs of a gas plant today, you could have an electric boiler with thermal energy storage that is cheaper than what a gas plant has because wind and solar are so inexpensive. So the tremendous value of having thermal energy storage as addressing our global needs is not only for security, resiliency, and reliability, but affordability too.
Okay, let's talk the magic question, can we? Cost. Is this why we don't have more long-term energy storage? Because currently more expensive? Although I don't know what the alternative is, which is just wasting the stuff, which sounds crazy. So does it need to be scaled and the costs will come down? Is it affordable in the developing countries? Do they need support from the developed world to make it happen in Africa? These kinds of questions, I think they're perfectly reasonable, yeah.
I'll start, but I know we can all add to this. Your portfolio approach is correct. We need the incentives there to help make sure that both developed and developing countries can afford the transition. There are some technologies that are affordable today, but they might be very large. So how do you bring the smaller technologies that could be in your homes, and how do you incentivize that? So we need both the government procurement to give the market signals so we can scale up. So we need the procurement policies of saying, every country will have 10 gigawatts of long duration energy storage. Then we can have the financing behind that to actually build it. And then with that certainty, we can have the scaling up to make sure that every one of us will have long duration energy storage in some form in our community. So it is a partnership working with government and private industries to start working on the scale, which has to happen to bring down costs.
I have a rather different perspective, I guess, as once again, coming back to my work, looking at mitigation activities in developing countries. Sweden has a budget, the Swedish Energy Agency has a budget to invest in mitigation activities, and as long as it can be proved that we mitigate carbon, that we can calculate exactly how much and show that it is additional, we have money to spend on that. And I guess I'll just pass on the mic to Jonas to ask how much money he needs, and I'll see if what we can do.
Now we're getting down to business. Now we're really getting down to business.
But I think one of the reasons why we picked these 4 key markets is because we are able to provide the end users with sort of lower alternative costs than they have today. Because take the example of South Africa. The power grid in South Africa is more or less in a chaotic situation. They have brownouts, blackouts every day. So what they have to do is they have to run their, if you have a sort of industry in South Africa, you have to run it on diesel. And then the alternative cost from our solution is like 20% of the diesel. And if you want to do the same kind of system with normal batteries, already today we can provide solutions that are 40% lower in cost than sort of adding a lot of lithium-ion batteries, because they are super costly. And they also have these degradation problems that after a couple of years you have to replace them. We are depending purely on physics and not on chemistry. Our solution do not have any degradations in the system, so we can sort of provide energy. This is sort of for many, many years, up to 20, 25 years is the lifetime of the solutions. So,
Super. Well, I think we're coming to the end of this presentation. I hope you've all found it very, very interesting. I think it's very interesting. And clearly a massively important thing. We need more renewable energy. We need more energy efficiency, of course. The Cinderella fuel they always talk about. I don't know if it's Cinderella everywhere, but it certainly was in my country. And then you've got storage. And then if you've got all these three lined up, you've got a big, powerful solution to the climate emergency that we're all facing right now. Maybe one last question to you, Julia. What is the weirdest and the wackiest long-term energy storage system you've ever heard of? There have got to be some really crazy ones out there, right? Because this must have invention yelling at it, and people in their garden sheds must be coming to you with, I've solved the problem. We can store it for 1,000 years, you know, that sort of thing.
I hope you all go to our website and see our diverse members, because we do have a range of creative thinking to help us address this problem. So I have no favorite child. They're all really cool and impressive. I think what's really exciting is to build on some of the traditional types of long duration energy storage, that's pumped hydro or compressed air, and see the innovations that have come forward to address the unique attributes of meeting our zero target goals. So whether you have this combined heat and power, which is really amazing to help us on our trajectory, and whether you have organic substitutes and lots of different types of batteries. I mean, there's a wide range of technologies that are out there, and I think that is really important. So no favorite kids, but really check out on the LDES.com website the diverse partnerships and the types of technologies that we have available.
But I would say, by the way, I mean, unlike last year's COP and unlike maybe the COP before, there are a lot of farmers here. There are farming organizations, agricultural organizations, over in the food systems area, over in the Nature Positive Pavilion. There's a food one here as well, isn't there? The food systems is here. I hope that one is going out to these organizations right now, because there is a huge opportunity at this COP to network on these kinds of solutions, and I bet they don't know about them in full or at all. So anyway, Jonas, thank you very much indeed. Nils, thank you very much. Julia, thank you very much indeed. It's been very interesting. I hope you enjoyed it. Anybody want to say a final word, and then we must close?
On your point on agriculture, greenhouses can be off the grid, and there is a way that long duration energy storage can provide the heat and power to the agricultural industry too. So that entire ecosystem of our global economy can be met with long duration energy storage, whether it's ports, transportation, hospitals. We can make this work, and we have to work together to really make sure we decarbonize today.
I feel like I'll probably repeat myself, but I believe that in the transition towards renewable energy, there is we're currently reaching the point where we really need to scale up storage, and we need to diversify the ways we store energy. So I welcome your solution.
Thank you. And I also want to say thank you to the Swedish Energy Agency for all the support. We have done a lot of sort of versatile different projects throughout the years, and they have all been very successful, so thank you. But I think that key here is that long duration energy storage will lower the costs for energy, and at the same time decarbonizing different industries that really are big CO2 emissions or have huge CO2 emissions, just as the agriculture sector. And what I also feel very strongly is that we are able to build the businesses in remote locations. It's not only in the cities that you can build profitable businesses. It's also to build profitable businesses remotely, and it's something that, for me as a person, I really feel very strongly that it's a good thing.
Good, Jonas. I think that's a very valuable point. And we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks to our terrific guests, and thanks to the Swedish team here and Business Sweden. Bye.